Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode 512 for the week of Monday, August 16th, 2021. A little bit of a different episode this week, but we'll get into it in just a second. My name is Ryan Higgins. Who's here with me?
Well, Ryan, you set it up so I can't do the Charlie.
Oh.
So I'm just going to say Kevin is here with you.
And Kevin. We actually... I completely wasn't even thinking about it. Toby's gone. Brock's on vacation, so he wasn't going to be here tonight. I hadn't heard from Charlie. Kevin had an interview thing, and I was like, oh, wait, we're going to skip tonight. We're not even going to do tonight's episode. I was just like, oh, yeah, shit, I forgot no one's around. But we wanted to do a short episode here because we felt we wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the bigger comic news from last week, and I didn't want to wait another week before we talked about this.
Well, and also we didn't have the clip show all edited together for the skip week.
I should.
You really should
pre-edit a couple episodes for the skip weeks where I know we're not going to be able to record. It's not a bad idea. So we're going to talk briefly about Substack, which is the newsletter company that has taken the comic world by storm over the last week. Some potentially big news to the industry. Again, we're going to do a little overview, kind of give a couple thoughts here real quick. Again, it's going to be a really short episode, but I did want to kind of get some thoughts out on this before it's, while we're still in hot take season, because after a few weeks, you're like, dude, that was like a lifetime ago. It's over. Just forget about it. So I'd heard of Substack, but I was definitely not. I don't really subscribe to anything. I had never used it. Do you subscribe, or previously have you subscribed to any?
I have not. I was aware of it as a thing that a lot of people were using it for newsletters,
right? So
things like that. Yeah, so I may have been on a Substack subscription list, but not been aware that it was specifically Substack.
Right. So what Substack is a paid newsletter service. So you can sign up, have a newsletter on there, but there's also a kind of let's say a Patreon or Kickstarter like functionality to it that pro accounts. I'm not actually sure if I could sign up and make a paid Substack subscription. Like, I haven't looked into it. I mean, I'm sure you could, right? I mean, hey, they'll take money from anyone. But yeah, so COVID kicked the idea of a newsletter, I think, way up. There's definitely, a lot of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram have had quite a bit of blowback. Social media is a nightmare. So the idea of self-controlled social media with newsletters. Newsletters used to be huge, right? I mean, back in the 90s, the early internet days, every newsletters were like how things got out. Really, they kind of went away. But yeah, I feel like there's been a big comeback the last few years to the idea of these newsletters. And guys like James Tynion had already had a newsletter, Scott Snyder. So some of these guys already had newsletters set up. Chip Zdarsky's had one for a while through Substack. So I've been connected to some of these, but again, a platform agnostic. I had no idea what Substack was. So what happened was a number of months ago, Nick Spencer had left Marvel Comics. He's a writer for Basic Spider-Man. His run's just about to wrap up, so he was pretty far ahead. He left Marvel to go work for Substack to be like their sort of like comic book guy. And at the time, people were like, okay, well, what is this? What is Substack? So a lot more has come out about the company, at least, to us, to comic book people, because again, it was something I think most of us were completely unaware of or ignored almost entirely. And it's a venture capitalist funded startup that is just like a paid newsletter service. So again, we'll get more into the details of what some people are doing, but right now, a lot of the Substacks you can pay for are $7 a month. And you get access to the free newsletters that are sent out by the creator, but also you get access to the paid newsletters, so specific newsletters, much like Patreon, how Patreon works. If you're a paid member, you get access to more content. Or $75 for a full year. Now, I don't know, again, when you talk about the political people and journalists and other people involved, I don't know what the pay scheme is there, but the $7.75 pay structure seems pretty consistent around the comic book people, so I'm assuming it's the same. So we had heard that there was some big news coming from this, that Nick Spencer had been talking to a lot of creators to sign up with Substack, and you're like, okay, but like, whatever, it's a newsletter. Sure, long form content. If you want to do some fiction writing or whatever, I mean, and hey, if you want to support the people, yeah, jump into a paid subscription. That's cool. But again, non-story. So last week on Monday, what was the original batch? James Tynion, I just mentioned, Scott Snyder, Saladin Ahmed, Dave Acosta, Jonathan Hickman, Molly Ostertag, and that's it. And Ron V, Tina Howard, Mike Del Mundo, Mike Huddleston, but they're not specifically. They're working with Substack, but they don't have their own newsletters. They all announced on Monday that they had signed up with Substack, launching their own paid newsletters through Substack. Fine. With the exception of Scott Snyder, we'll talk about him maybe last, because I think it's a little bit of a different situation with him. The difference here is that these people were all invited, and they are the first batch, first of many. Tip of the iceberg is what I've been told privately, that they are the first of many creators that are going to work directly with Substack. They are not being paid by the subscribers. So right now, if you subscribe to James Tynion, for the first year, Substack gets 85% of the payment. James gets 15%. But the reason they're able to do this is because they are being paid a flat fee. They are what's called Substack Pro members. So they've been specifically sought out by Substack and by Nick Spencer to be the sort of, paid, like, I mean, they call it a grant. I don't know if it's legally a grant. I'm not sure of the technicality there, but they're paid a flat yearly fee by Substack to be on their platform. Okay. After a year, the subscription model flips 90-10, 90%, 10% to the creator. So after the first year, the creators get 90% of the money. The Substack gets 10%. I do not, and I know I'm saving some stuff here, so I know where I'm there's a big piece of the puzzle here that I'm not talking about yet. So I don't know how that works. I don't know that anyone's made any public contracts or made any info available on year two, but I don't know if Tynion and Snyder and these guys get paid a flat fee the second year, or if Substack basically just pays them the first year to kind of like, hey, get your thing set up. And so all this to say, it's a paid newsletter. Really, how much money are you going to make? Well, that's where things become very interesting. So with Substack and what Nick Spencer is doing, the idea here is that all these creators, and since then, Chip Zdarsky's joined, Scotty Young's joined. I thought I saw Kyle Higgins joined, but he may just have a Substack account. He might not be a pro member. I don't actually know about that, but I saw a few other people that they're now in the ecosystem, but I'm unsure if they're pro members or not. They have all created their own independent comic companies with the money from Substack to publish original comic books in their Substack newsletters. So James Tynion is going to be launching a number of comics original comics. The first one's with Mike Oeming. They're going to launch original comic books in their Substack newsletters. Now, these are not print comics. This is just digital. But if you're a big fan of James Tynion or Jonathan Hickman or any of these creators, if you want to read their digital comics for all intents and purposes, first, you have to have a paid Substack account. There's also like a $250 a year version, which I think has like additional bonuses that they send you, kind of like Patreon or Kickstarter. I think the $75 or $7 a month is just sort of like, you're a member, congratulations. I think the $250, I think they're incentivizing you to they give you additional stuff. But it's different between accounts. So this isn't Comixology, or this isn't, DC Infinite or Marvel Universe or Marvel Unlimited, right? Where they have like a digital comic reader. They have individual comics you can purchase, or a subscription service to a Netflix style all you can eat digital comic service. This is a monthly or yearly paid service to their newsletter, which some newsletters will contain some form of original comic work. As of right now, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what's available. You don't know how long it's going to run. You don't know the quality of the content. You don't know what else is coming up. So you're kind of locking in for a year, just sort of sight unseen. Yeah, I get Comixology. I get Marvel Unlimited and DC Infinite. I don't really get this. It's the creators have all come out and said Substack is very open. The money's there to do whatever they want. There's nothing they have to do. I do find it ironic that the majority of them have left or are leaving most social media accounts and will be pretty much exclusive with Substack for their social media presence. Apparently, that's not a requirement. I find it a little, I don't know, interesting. We'll say that. I want these creators to do well. I'm just a guy like Scott Snyder. I consider him a friend, right? We'll talk about what Scott's doing in a second here, because he's doing something a little bit different. But I don't know that I have faith in a venture capitalist funded newsletter service last valued at $650 million that just got $65 million in VC funding to, for anyone that doesn't, I mean, look, I'm far from a venture capitalist expert or far from it. But the basic idea here is that these are investors investing in a company they think is going to go public or get sold to a Google, a Facebook. For billions of dollars, the investors get a huge return, whether it goes public or whether they're in early or it gets sold and they get a huge return on their investment. And so, growth at any means is kind of the name of the game here. Throwing money at stuff to get numbers you want is how venture capitalism works. So I'm concerned for the creators. I don't hate the idea. I'm concerned for how this is going to work in the long term. I'm concerned about year 2 for them. there's, pirating a digital comic involves at least some sort of clicking of multiple pages and purchasing of the book. Pirating a Substack comic means forwarding a newsletter. Like, it's just, they clearly are getting support. They've said so publicly. They've said the support's been incredible. I just don't know how this is all going to pan out. And if you're the 10th person joining, I'm going to guess you're not getting the money Tynion and Snyder got. If you're the 100th person joining, I really don't think you're getting the same sort of money, almost regardless of your name. This is a big ask for the industry, for the fans, for the buying public, to potentially support blind dozens, if not hundreds, of creators directly. I've got a few other things I want to say, but Kevin, I want to get your hot take.
It's hard to have a hot. Well, okay. In this day and age,
cooling down.
It's easy to have a hot take on something I know nothing about. So the problem is there's just too many unknowns.
Right.
It's like. Right. So I subscribe to a bunch of creator newsletters right now. Zdarsky, sure. Oming, Declan Shalvey, blah, 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 on and on. And sometimes those newsletters, so they'll send it through. It's like, here's what's coming out this month. Here's what I've been doing. They'll have a few paragraphs of text. And then sometimes the newsletters will have, here is the opening 2 pages of this new comic that's coming out next month. I hope you'll check it out.
Brubaker's is really good.
Oh, yeah.
Brubaker's newsletters for years I've been
that's
reading.
Right.
And he does a really good job.
But what I found is when it comes to those, here's a couple of sample pages, I go into pure skim mode.
Yeah.
Because I'll look at it. Obviously, you're looking at it because you're seeing that it's there. But I mean, I'm not really interested in reading comics via email.
Yeah.
And so you don't know, like, what is the methodology, the delivery method going to be? Do you type in a password and then that newsletter takes you to a third site where it's more like a Comixology? Is it literally contained inside the email you're receiving? Is it a password protected PDF that you're getting attached to the email? It's just, I think it is a big ask because let's say you say, oh, I want to support Tynion. I think we all like him personally and as a creator, right?
Yeah, of course.
We all 2 of us. I should mean everybody who's on the show. But so if I say, okay, well, $75 or whatever it is for a year, right? It's 75 or 70 something.
I think it's 70.
Okay.
Out of 75. Yeah.
What are you going to get for that? Is he going to write 4 comics and you're going to get 1 per month and it's just going to rotate through? Are you going to get 1 per week, like a serialized chapter? I just have no way of, like, who's drawing them? What are they?
Well, I don't think there's any sort of like, this is the schedule. I don't think there's anything that stops them from going cold for 6 weeks. Maybe there is internally. They might have some contract where they have to hit a certain amount a week.
Well, I'm going to assume you've got to deliver something, even if it's just the newsletter that doesn't happen to have comics that issue. It's just so, again, leaving Snyder aside, when Snyder announced his Comixology deal with those group of titles he's curating,
makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yep. You get it. You know what the model is. You know the delivery method. It's digital first, and it might be physical through different channels down the road.
Yep.
That's an easy buy-in. And if Snyder said Comixology is running a subscription model,
and I mean, at launch, Dark Horse was listed as the publisher, right?
Right.
So immediately I'm like, cool, I can completely ignore the stuff on Comixology. Nothing against people that want to join it, but it's part of Unlimited, right? So you can get the Comixology Unlimited. Those comics are free on there if you have the service.
But even if Comixology had carved out a business model for Snyder saying, you can subscribe to all of these books for X amount per year, and you get every issue digitally, I'd get that. And you'd know what you're getting. Yep. This is the Tula Lotte book. This is the so-and-so book. This is that and that. this is just so unknown. And it's almost like and you mentioned the VC aspect. It's almost like if you and I decided we're going to open a restaurant, you, me, Toby, Charlie, and Brock all went up to our eyeballs in debt to open a restaurant, but then we hired a couple of celebrity chefs to run it.
Yeah.
So then people from the outside are looking and go, oh, well, shit, these guys have some big names behind, running the kitchen. They must know something, huh? Maybe I should invest in this restaurant. These are the celebrity chefs of Substack. Because otherwise, basically, you're paying for Medium. Right. You're paying to read Medium, which there are paid Medium accounts. Sure, but as I think my only question is, if it said Tynion is giving up comics and he's going to write serialized fiction on Substack, it would make more sense to me.
Well, so that's what a lot of the people that are the successful people on Substack, and we'll touch briefly on the controversial aspect of it, but they are journalists, so they are written text pieces with a history. You know what you're going to get. They have moved from public journalism, but you know what I mean. They've moved from traditional journalism to a subscription model. One of the biggest concerns with Substack is, again, growth by any means they have brought in a lot of questionable right-wing people that have been kicked off other platforms for their comments and let's just say comments and what they've written about. They've been removed from other social media platforms. They're not just on Substack. Substack is paying them to be there.
Yeah.
They chose them because they know they're going to bring numbers. So leaving aside that element, comics aren't, even in the pandemic, even with the growth of digital comics, we've yet to see them come anywhere close to eclipsing print. We obviously don't have things like Marvel Unlimited numbers. I'm sure they do very, very well. I'm a member, right? I'm a member of both of them, right? I use both of them. So, I'm not saying don't. But I think if these came out and Tynion and Ahmed and Hickman said, look, we're going to be releasing this. You're going to get 6 pages a week. So a month's worth. And then I signed with Image. I signed with Dark Horse, whatever. I signed with Boom. And the print comics are coming out immediately after. Here's our schedule. Here's our list of titles, blah, blah, blah. I think you'd be like, okay, that makes a little more sense. I think what they're going for here, and I'm sure a couple of people listening will have maybe made this connection, but I kind of feel like they're going for a version of Webtoons. Webtoons?
Yeah.
So Webtoons is like one of the biggest things in comics and completely uninvolved in the comic industry. It is free. I think so. I believe it's free. I believe there's ways to pay, but
but it's a free entry platform. Yeah,
right. And so it's scrolling web comics. So the idea is you're on your phone. It's not page by page. It's sort of it works. It's a format that works better for the phone. It's extremely, extremely popular, and probably no one listening to this podcast uses them. Probably no one listening to this podcast has ever read a Webtoons book. It's I don't want to say it's for kids. It is for definitely a younger generation outside of our target demo.
And it's also a self-publishing platform.
Right. So it's
the Wild West of people who, gosh, this is a shitty way to say it. I just can't think of a better way to say it. So there's no gatekeeping. And a lot of times in creative industries, gatekeeping is bad. And I acknowledge that. But sometimes when there is no oversight at all, you're going to have to wade through. And look, I admire anyone who makes something and publishes something. Good for you. Good for everyone on Webtoons. Instead of just, it's so easy to sit on social media and throw Molotov cocktails at other people's work.
Yep.
But to actually do it yourself. So here's a silent clap for everybody who's published something somewhere. With that said, you have to wade through a lot of kind of not ready for primetime stuff on Webtoon.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is, I don't want to stereotype here, but it is clearly, it is American anime, right?
Yes.
Or it's American manga. It is the most popular stuff is 100%, extremely influenced by manga and manga tropes. Again, which that audience is used to free content and there's a disconnect from financial support of creators and the print medium in general. So again, it is ridiculously popular, and I literally don't know a single person that uses it. So these they get hundreds of thousands. The most popular stuff gets hundreds of thousands of views. But again, let's look at TikTok. Let's look at Instagram. How many people can translate hundreds of thousands of views to millions of dollars? Not many, right? Very, very few. So yeah, it's an interesting idea, and I have not seen the print numbers on some of these. I'm sure some of them have gone to print and done well, but again, it is just a different audience.
I will add real quick because I just found this while we were talking. So I pay for a couple of newsletters. Like, I'm a paid subscriber to a couple of newsletters that are like literally newsletters, news. And I just scrolled to the bottom of an issue that just came in my inbox right when we started recording. And at the bottom, I won't name the newsletter, but because it could be, a lot. It says at the bottom, Substack is down at the very bottom, the Substack logo. And then it says, this newsletter is only for paying subscribers of blank. But I can click the forward button right here and send it to anyone.
Yeah.
Now,
that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah.
So Now, with this newsletter, the thing would be, I don't know a lot of people in my life who would be interested in getting it if I were to forward it. But if you're talking about like, hey, as just to take an example, hey, Bryce is going to subscribe to all Tinian's comics and then just forward them to all of us.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. But I mean, out in the world, away from us, how could you say it's not going to happen?
No, it definitely will. Oh, I'm sure there's already tons of torrent groups and
yes.
And digital comic reader groups that are like, oh yeah, we'll just get one person to fund it. That's fine. And yeah.
So if somebody,
the barrier to entry for that's like I was saying earlier, extremely low compared to like copying out Comixology or stuff like that. That's easy, but this is just forward.
But if they came to you right now or me and said, hey, would you like to invest in Substack to get in the ground floor of this comics thing? I would say, come back to me in 2022.
I want to see a year.
I want to see a year.
Yeah. And I want to see dozens, hundreds of creators that are making a living off this. Again, so not only is a lot of the commentary about this, well, look, there's very questionable people the Substack is paying out. They've also turned to, Scott Snyder, who was the biggest person at DC Comics, right? Nick Spencer, who was one of the biggest guys at Marvel, Jonathan Hickman, obviously the big guy at Marvel, and James Tynion, the biggest guy at DC, right? So you've turned to the four of the biggest creators in print Western comics, right? In the superhero world. That's great for them. But again, what does the 12th, 18th, 32nd, 50th, 250th creator that joins, someone with a really small creator base who's trying to grow, is this market for that? Or are you just, again, Substack wants the numbers. if you get rando people, they're not going to draw in a big crowd. So you've got to get the biggest guys in the field in. And they're not going for, the people behind, what's the guy's name? The people behind like Dogman, right?
Oh, yeah.
That are really the biggest people in Western comics, right? They are going for the biggest adult reader audience. They're not going for Raina Telgemeier, right? I mean, her audience would not do that. They're not
right.
Her audience for children. They're not going to pay for this. So it just feels a little gross. And I don't want to say I am super happy for the creators for getting a payday. I'm super happy for them getting funding for their independent comics. I question the company and the model and the longevity of it, not the success of the people that are getting the money. There's also a lot of artists, because this is a written medium, even though there has to be comic art for the comics. They go to writers, they go to journalists. So I said day one, I was like, what is this going to do to there's already a bit of a writer versus artist thing in comics in general that has ebbs and flows. This, I feel like, has kicked it into high gear. We should talk briefly about Scott Snyder.
Yeah.
So you did a 1 month?
So myself and Toby are signed up for Snyder's writing class.
So you guys actually did sign up for this, but it's not a comic book. This is the difference.
Right. This is a class, and I thought I could go the rest of my life without ever sitting in another writing seminar, but here I am. But I said to Toby, I'm like, because he was doing it, and it wasn't peer pressure. It was just he was doing it, and I thought, you know what? I'm doing it month by month. You could do it for the year. It's the same price, $7. Now this is called $7, quote unquote, per class. Now, I've paid for something already, but we haven't had any classes yet. So he got the thing up and going without knowing how many people he'd have. It's a thing where you had to get enrollment numbers to then plan the thing. So people are paying on faith that you're going to get something good. So far what he sent out are newsletters, right, with, and I'm using air quotes for the listeners, assignments. Now, there's no accountability. It's not like Snyder's going to be grading people's work. Yeah. But he gives these kind of assignments to do at home. And then there was a survey newsletter about what's the format you're looking for. How often do you want to see a newsletter published versus like a class assignment?
And I believe he's going to do like a video, like a live video that you can watch. The newsletter will have the video to watch. Yeah. So the video is the class that you're paying for, one class per month. And then the newsletter will have this is my best description of it. This is not Snyder's words. This is me. The newsletter will essentially have the workbook that goes along with the stuff from that class that was discussed on video. Okay. And then he's also going to have a newsletter that's like all the Scott Snyder happenings. Right. I think a lot of those are the free newsletters the one I just described is the free. And then anything that's related to assignments or the class is the paid. Right. And again, has he had a video up? Is it just a YouTube link? Is it a
we haven't had one yet. We haven't had one yet that I've seen. So looking at my inbox right now as we're talking, I signed up on August 10th. So I have an email August 10th. August 11th was your first assignment. And it's a 6-minute audio clip, like a mini podcast. Okay. And then I have an email August 13th, which is the second assignment with another 6-minute little Scott does a little audio intro. So I've had 3 emails in 1 week since I joined.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's actually interesting. I think that's you'll find. I'm not against the idea of doing a comic this way. I just, like I said before, I question the schedule, I question the company, I question the longevity of this. Snyder doing the class is interesting. I'm sure that's not that it's easy, but it's Tynion and Hickman, and Hickman. God knows Hickman loves keeping schedules and finishing projects. We all know his wonderful track record of that. And Zdarsky and all this, they're now tasked with not just being writers, but they're now the heads of their own companies and editors and hiring artists and making payments. Again, artists are not paid for this. They are now freelancing for the people that have these Substack accounts. So if you're tiny and you now have to go hire artists, you have to hire editors, you got to do all the work of a small press independent creator. Whereas if you're with Image, you're with DC, you're with Vault or Boom, they have those people already, right? So it comes back to money. It comes back to the creators being paid. And Marvel and DC should pay them out the ass for everything even closely resembling movie or TV. They should, without question, being paid way more. Page rates for the small press companies need to go up. Image feels like it still has the best deal in comics, but I don't know the specifics. But
well, what I've been told, I'll just say it off the record because it wasn't for publication, but this is not like some dark secret. I'm just saying this is what I've been told casually.
Yeah,
is that the Image model is you're gambling on yourself,
right?
Because Image, you only get paid once that book is selling. Right. Image will promote it. Image will ship and print and everything like that, but you're not getting paid.
Right.
So the Substack model, I guess, is you have the security, you're getting paid up front. Whereas the Image model, you're basically gambling on yourself.
Yep.
Image, I guess with every Image series is a startup, is how to look at it.
But I don't think Substack's paying these guys a year two. Do you?
No, I think that's when it flips, right? That's when it's purely subscription numbers.
And if you blow up on Substack, and I know this was the complaint from some very successful people that have been on there, where they actually made less money. They would have made more money with the subscriptions than they made from what Substack paid them. So I'm not going to say that's the case with these guys, but that could possibly turn that way where Substack's actually costing you money if you did this on your own. I don't want to sound like I'm some old fuddy-duddy outside of, the industry and hates new tech or anything like that. Again, I think digital comics are a great intro to people. I think it's a great alternative for a lot of people. I think the unlimited idea of Marvel and DC and Comixology is great because, again, you're just test driving old stuff. You can just jump in and get whatever you want. I think that's great. I have zero interest in paying $1 for an old issue of Batman, but paying, $100 a year to get access to everything is great. I have no problem with that. Right. Or whatever, DC. Marvel Unlimited, it's like $59.99. I think DC is cheaper. Not $100, like $80 or $60 or whatever it is. But still, that's great. I have no problem with that. I do not wish to own digital comics. It's meaningless to me. So yeah, I don't wish ill will on any of this stuff. I just question how it's gonna work. And yeah, year two is a big question mark.
I am so happy that they have they They have the opportunity to just go and find their own voices and do exactly what they want to do. As a customer, I don't want an inbox full of emails where I'm like, okay, now where did I stop reading?
Yeah.
Like, oops, wait, I remember this panel. Okay, hold on,
Well,
I gotta scroll.
and look, I like Tiny, but holy hell, his newsletters are long.
Yeah,
Like,
and look, are you reading Department of Truth?
yeah,
So
not current, but yes, I
okay, so I'll just say, spoiler free, I'm just going to say, I love that book with a capital L. The last 2 issues of Department of Truth have had multiple pages that's entirely in handwriting. And I'm talking about top to bottom on the page. It's a person's diary.
Oh, yeah, I saw those. Yeah, I saw those pages.
Okay, you want to read that in an email?
Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming all of them will modify their storytelling for how this is going to be read. Right. I just don't want to sit on an email and read.
But how does that? But then again, can you translate that to a comic book? How does that translate to a print comic? A lot of these webtoon comics, they don't really work as print medium because of the way they're structured as like a scrolling comic.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, maybe a little hard to describe. Go look them up on your phone. Look at how they're intended to be read. It doesn't flow the same way.
No.
So much of a comic is, like, God knows there are tons of digital comics where you're like, yeah, clearly this is not really, read Promethea on a phone.
God. Can you imagine?
Like it's just not intended for that.
No.
And I picked the most extreme example, but you know what I mean.
Well, when you're making the physical comic, you're planning for a page turn.
Right.
Like you're structuring it for a page turn. And so if it's this Substack model, again, all we're doing here is speculating. Is it going to be every newsletter that you get is literally 1 page of comic? And so the quote unquote cliffhanger is at the end of each email. And then you find out what happens on the next page, the next thing that hits your inbox.
Yep. I think, they should have had a stronger out the gate unified platform for all these people that they could all use.
And show an audience or the public, the news sites, hey, Comixology works like this. This is what ours is going to look like.
Yeah.
It's just it's a big ask to ask people to subscribe annually just on the name of, hey, this person is going to be doing something for us.
Yeah. And I think going back to Kickstarter and Patreon, right? With Kickstarter, any good Kickstarter is going to have the finished project, or at least a full rundown, all the bonus stuff, blah, blah, blah. It's all planned. It's all there. It has to be, right? That's the whole point of Kickstarter. With Patreon, you're generally like the people that use our Patreon. They are already invested. They already know what they're getting. It is a support of an existing format. Some people use Patreon for like, oh, I'm going to send you my art every month, or I'm going to send you, updated D&D model kits, or there's other Patreons out there, but a lot of them are for existing content that you are supporting the content makers. So yeah, I mean, day one, I was like, what in the fuck is this? This is horrible. I have cooled on it a tad. I'm not as hot takey as I was, but I have a ton of questions, and I am concerned for the creators involved, because I hope they're not biting off more than they can chew, and I hope that Substack is not. I hope they are legitimately committed to the comics industry and the comic creators, and not just using them to goose numbers for the quarter so they can get more VC funding to then just. It doesn't matter. It's meaningless, and we can just ignore them after that. So those are my big concerns.
Yep. If I was any of those creators, my first move before I reach out to an artist, before I reach out to anyone, my first move is I'm hiring a project manager, because I can't run the business and write 5 comics a month or whatever it's going to be.
Right. You have to.
I'm
manager,
sure.
Editor. There's a lot that goes on in the back end that I hope these guys are all prepared for. And I said something about, kind of ditching traditional social media. And I'm like, well, how do you get more people in
Right.
if you are not promoting the product? Because the social media promotes the product. You could say Substack's a product, or you could say Substack's like social media, but it's not. It's a product.
Yeah.
That is a paid product that you need to get people into. So guys like Tiny and leaving Twitter, it's like, okay, but how do new people find this other than word of mouth? So it'll be in the back of the print comics, and I'm sure there'll be advertisements for it and stuff like that. But it just
seems like
a lot of questions.
Look, nobody's going to sit here and defend Twitter, but it seems like if you're one of these guys, wouldn't you like to be, hey, check out this awesome panel by Jock, or fill in the blank. There's more where this came from exclusively on my Substack thing. Like, why would you cut yourself off from that?
Yeah. Tiny Ian's email where he talked about Twitter being a cesspool. I'm like, yeah, we know. Like, every social media is a cesspool. Like, that's just what social media is.
You don't have to engage with anyone. Just use it as a advertising, like a billboard.
And he does have like his Tiny Onion account, so I'm sure that will deal with it. But like, man, when you're doing your own thing, you are your promotion, right?
Right.
You're not Coca-Cola. Like, you're when you promote yourself, you've got to be promoting yourself. Yeah. A
lot of questions.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those, the proof will be in the pudding sort of situations where, let's see who's talking about this in 6 months. Let's see how long does it take for these books to hit the market. How many hit after a year? Where are they in a year? Are they all quit Substack? Is this the big thing? And there's like 500 creators on there, and I'm subscribed to like 30 creators at $75 a year.
Ooh, that's a big ask.
That's a lot of money, man. I support a lot of creators in the print industry.
Yeah.
At probably that price or more. I'm not doing it on Substack though.
Yeah, that's a big ask, especially because it's not like the comics market is going away and you're going to get all your comics this way. People still have to budget to buy actual comics.
Oh yeah, and that's one of those things. If the industry was in the toilet, I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
Like we had July was the biggest month in comics in like the modern era. This isn't like that's the direct to market. This isn't some like dying industry, despite what various accounts will tell you. We are at a height we have not seen since the 90s, and this is not a flash in the pan. This is legitimate sales. This is quality content on every aspect of the industry, be it single issues, digital, graphic novels, manga, superheroes, kids comics. I mean,
well, maybe there's some thought on the Substack end of like that the comics industry, like the store industry, the DM, is like cable TV, and each of these creators is a streaming service.
Yeah.
And they're seeing, oh, well, people are willing to pay a la carte for all these things that they like. Like, Snyder is Disney Plus. I don't know, whoever's Netflix, sure. Blah, blah. And so people are used to the a la carte model.
Yep.
But the difference is with that a la carte model.
But that's comics. That's Comixology Unlimited.
Right.
That's DC Universe. Right.
I was going to say you get a lot of content for that monthly fee.
Yeah. And again, I'm not against direct support of creators.
No.
One of my favorite bands, They Might Be Giants. I have not bought music in a long time. I had a big record. Me and Leanne were just talking about this yesterday or today. I had a big record collection. We had a fire at my apartment a number of years ago. Lost the entire thing. Had that not happened, I'm sure I'd still be buying albums and records like crazy. But when that happened, I was like, well, I guess I'm done with music, because the format, be it CDs or cassette or whatever, at the time had basically died off. Obviously now there's a huge rise in vinyl, and you get a bunch of other stuff, and you get what's the site, Bandcamp and things like that.
Yeah.
But things have obviously changed dramatically. They Might Be Giants, though, was one of my favorite bands, and I supported them for a number of years through their fan club, right? And just make direct payment to them. You get a bunch of free swag. Super cool, right? And I knew exactly what I was getting into. And again, I did that for one band. There's a bunch of concerts. I like going to concerts. I like buying merch from them and stuff like that. So again, I know exactly what I'm getting into. And I can see a lot of people being like, well, look, I'm not going to support 100 people, but I'll support Tynion. I'll support Zdarsky. I can do the one. And maybe that's enough.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's real interesting.
Yep.
And it sounds like these are all going to get print editions, which of course, because that's where the money is, right?
Yeah. So why not just, if you're interested?
Yeah, just wait.
That's...
These are kind of these almost to me are like, these are cool previews until the real product comes out.
But you don't have to pay for previews normally.
Yeah. So to me, it is a little like, if your interest is more in how the stuff is made, again, I get it. So
yeah. It'd be interesting to revisit this conversation 1 year from now.
Yeah. Let's book it. Let's bookmark it. Set an alarm. I wish I could find the article. I actually had an alarm go off the other day that I forgot I said. It was for 1 year ago. Someone, I don't remember who it was. I can't find the article, but someone said that DC would be out of business and Marvel would be 90% of the industry in 1 year. And I was like, shit, I wish I'd bookmarked that article. I can't remember who said it. So maybe I'll make an alarm for this and we'll see where we are in a year on Substack. Very happy for the creators for a payday. Really question the longevity of this project. And I should say, right? I mean, in this case, Tynion left DC. That's kind of I kind of forgot the biggest news of all of this, right? So he's done. He's off Batman. He's off all the DC titles now. Nice House on the Lake is going to finish off its run. It's not an ongoing book. It was an intended long arc series. 14, 18 issues or something like that. So there will be these Zdarsky's still working at Marvel. He said, but. Anyone that thought Hickman wasn't gone before, sorry, I told you he was gone. He's gone from Marvel. Gone. Yeah. We'll see.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, not our normal episode. Went almost potentially normal episode length here, though. So we do want to thank everyone for listening. We will have a full cast and a lot more other news to talk about. And I don't want to continuously bag on Substack or any of this stuff. I will kind of just, I guess if there's big news about something, we can bring it up later, but I'm not sure that we'll have much more to say about this topic. Maybe I know Toby, maybe we'll get his idea on the Snyder videos after a couple. But if you've subscribed, I actually would like to hear from people. If you're throwing money down on this stuff and you're all in, let us know.
Yeah.
Send us an email or hit us up on social media. Let us know how it goes.
And what is it? And what is the experience? And also, what are you hoping to get out of it for your money?
Yeah. I think it's just supporting the creators is great. That's awesome. If that's what your goal is, if that's what you want to do, cool. Awesome. But do you realize they don't get anything the first year? So, it's not really directly supporting them. All right. Yeah. Well, we don't need to do our regular intros or intro and outro and all that crap. We'll deal with that next week. I haven't got my Patreon stuff all sorted or anything, so we'll deal with that next week. Thank you all, everyone, for listening. We'll be back Sunday. Well, we'll do our Sunday night recording, but Monday night we'll have a nice new episode. So see you later, everyone.